Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video I'm going to share some information with you on a lovely little plant called lungwort. Now lungwort is also known as Pulmonaria officinalis, and it got its name Pulmonaria because of how amazing it is for the lungs, your pulmonary system, your respiratory system. Now this is a plant that many of you might be familiar with if you have a mature yard with a lot of shade in it, because this is a plant that I like to call the princess and the pea. And the only reason, and this is my own common name for it, is because I think it's kind of picky. Now it'll grow lush, but it needs exactly the right conditions. So besides needing shade, it needs to have really nutrient dense soil. So if you have soil that's less than optimal, there are some plants that will thrive in soil that's poor, but not lungwort. Lungwort needs to have really rich soil with a ton of nutrition in it, and it also needs to be moist but not damp. So you can't have a waterlogged area or a place that gets too much water. It needs just the right conditions for it to thrive. Now, this is a plant that was naturalized in Europe and Western Asia, but now it grows all over the United States as well. And it can make a beautiful addition to your garden and your yard if you have exactly the right conditions. So if you have a beautiful shady spot, like you can plant your hostas in a spot that's shady. Well, this is also a beautiful place to plant lungwort. There are many places that you'll find lungwort in the wild. If you go on in woodland places, hikes where there's lots of shade, you will see, if you know where to look for them, and they're very easy to identify, you will see lungwort growing in amongst the trees, especially if the soil is really rich in nutrients. Now, this is a plant that I started studying about 10 or 11 years ago when I was in the thick of formulating our lung blend. So lung blend has osha root, mullein, lobelia, peppermint, and the beautiful, amazing lungwort. And I don't think that lungwort gets enough attention when it comes to all the medicinal properties. So if you're a gardener and a person who really loves yard work and planting all kinds of beautiful things, this might be something that you're familiar with, but you might not realize the power that you're growing in your own yard. And not only is this a powerful medicinal plant, but this has also been used over the years for food. So you can brew it into a tea, you can pick the leaves, eat them in a salad, you can saute them up. Lungwort, the leaves, you use the leaves and the flowers, but mostly the leaves are where all the medicinal properties live. And if you were to eat the leaves, especially if you were to chop it up and eat them raw in a salad, or just eat a lungwort salad, it might not be your cup of tea because it does contain a substance called mucilage, which can be kind of slimy. But that is partly where a lot of its power lives, is in some of these properties that help soothe digestion, relax the respiratory system. It has a ton of properties in some of those things that might not taste that great, but it is a nice addition to other leafy greens if you're going to grow it in your yard and use it for medicinal reasons. So when I was studying plants that are good for respiratory health and lung health, lungwort came up on the radar, but it was actually weirdly low on the radar until I started diving a little deeper into it, because I was like, now wait a minute. What this is telling me is that while it has all of this historical use, centuries worth of use in medieval times, in times when you would go to your herbalist for, the different ailments that you would have, it got lost along the way when modern medicine jumped in. And it still to this day does not have a ton of scientific research behind it. So I thought, okay, wait a minute. There are these plants that have all this power and have been used for centuries, but now in the last 100 years, it's fallen off the radar a little bit, except for if you're going to plant it in your garden. So I started digging deeper, and what I found was that this is a plant that should not be skipped over. It's a plant that you can safely use, like I said, for food. You can make it into a tincture. You can make it into a poultice. It's in the borage family, and it's also got some similar properties to comfrey, where you can take a leaf, a fresh leaf, maybe a bunch of them, macerate it up, and put it directly on a skin wound or directly on eczema, which really, really is soothing and nourishing for the skin. So before I go any further, the information I share with you is just meant to educate you and entertain you. If you have any serious health issues, health conditions, you're pregnant, you're nursing, you're on medications, as always, not only do your due diligence, but check in with your healthcare practitioner and do some of your own research, all the stuff, before you add anything that you're going to be consuming and putting into your body, because you have to really think about this. We live in very, very different times. We live in times when we are so toxic with the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the toxic energy and information that we let in through the media, through all of our devices. We are just kind of streaming and swimming in toxicity. So if we have issues that we're dealing with and our body is in a state, you might not just want to start throwing a bunch of herbs at you, because herbs are powerful medicine. And I'm not saying that your internal environment and everything has to be absolutely perfect before you start adding these things into your diet or into your medicinal herbal cupboard. But I'm saying you need to use common sense. You need to educate yourself, and you need to realize that we are these perfectly formed a human species, that we are dealing with a lot of toxins in our modern environment. So the goal is to really know what you're personally dealing with, know what your situation is, know the different things that you're doing, and just use your common sense. And not just that, then use your intuition, because we have this powerful guiding system called our intuition. We can even do applied kinesiology, where we can muscle test on ourselves. And I've gotten to this point where if there's a plant that I want to use or an herbal remedy I want to add into my routine for a certain issue, I will muscle test for it. I will tune in to the frequency and the energy of what the plants are telling me. And we all have that. This is not something unique to me or other people who study plants. This is something we all have. We're gifted this because we're all one collective. We're one humanity. And not just that, we are connected to the plants. The plants can speak to us and talk to us energetically. I'm not talking about the plant opening up its mouth and talking to you, but they can energetically connect with you. And if you will get still enough, if you will disconnect from all of the distractions and all of the noise, there are plants like Lungwort that will literally speak to you and encourage you to add into your health routine, and maybe keep a tincture of Lungwort up in your cupboard for when you need it for certain things, because it can do some beautiful things. So when I was researching the herbs for the lung blend, and I discovered Lungwort, I was like, holy cow, this plant needs to go in just the right percentage in with the other herbs that are in a tincture in the lung blend. So it's a formula that I did about 10 years ago called Lung Blend. Specially crafted, absolutely amazing. In fact, this is one of the tinctures that I love to take straight. And for the most part, when I'm lining up, I have 3 little shot glasses that I put on my counter, and I do a little blend of different herbal tinctures that I might be taking, and I kind of muscle test daily for them. If I'm doing a parasite cleanse, or I'm going through the SEAC, or, I'm going through the different formulas throughout the year that I go through, I will put the tinctures I'm doing daily in 3 little shot glasses, and then I'll pour boiling hot water over all 3 of the glasses. And what it does is it'll dissipate the alcohol out, and then I'll just take them during the day. But what I'd love to do with the Lungwort, especially if it's a day where there's compromised breathing, if the air is really dense with pollution. Here in Utah in the winter, we get what's called inversion. We sit between 2 mountain ranges, and sometimes the pollution will get trapped in the valley because of the weather system, and the cold air will get trapped in all the pollution, and it compromises your breathing. Sometimes there's fires that sweep around, and because of the weather systems, we might get the smoke from California, and it might be really, really, really super smoky up in Salt Lake where I live from the California wildfires. So during those times when I just feel like my lungs could use a little bit of love, I will take the lung blend tincture, I'll squeeze as much as I can up into a dropper, and I'll just put it straight in my mouth. And the reason I do this is because it goes in and I can literally feel it open up my lungs. And this is not for everybody as far as doing it like that, but to me, this is such beautiful proof that Mother Nature goes in and goes to work. Now, one of the very coolest things I love about lungwort, there's a thing called the Doctrine of Signatures. I love this, and I've been studying this forever, where certain plants look like certain parts of the body. So if, like, for example, if you cut a carrot right on the, you take a long carrot and you cut it, the round slice of carrot looks like an eye, and the iris of an eye, and round like an eye. And carrots are very, very high in beta carotene, which is really, really good for your eyesight. So walnuts is another example. If you crack open a walnut, there's the little walnut, it looks like a little brain. Well, no surprise, walnuts are full of omega-3 fatty acids that are super healthy for your brain. So the Doctrine of Signatures works exactly like example for like lungwort. If you look at the leaves of lungwort, they're covered with white spots and they resemble the shape of a lung, right? And back when this was being used in medieval times, that leaf got looked at and it was like, this looks like a diseased lung. This is actually what they thought. And so what they did is they started using it for respiratory health and lung health and clearing mucus out of the lungs and all the different things. I mean, and then over all these centuries of time, it's been used for respiratory and lung health. So if you think about that, Mother Nature is giving us clues. And that was called the Doctrine of Signatures. Now, there was actually I don't know if he was a doctor, I think he was a doctor, Dr. Culpeper, I believe was his name. He identified lungwort and figured it was in the Doctrine of Signatures. But if you look in his work, he actually identified lungwort lichen and not the lungwort plant. So there is a difference. There's a difference between lichen and the plant. Okay, lichen is more like a moss, and the lungwort plant is what we're talking about today, the Pulmonaria officinalis. Absolutely amazing plant. Now, one of my favorite things to do with this plant, if I have it growing in my yard, which right now I don't, but making this video is like, okay, I need to get this plant growing again, because when I first planted this in my yard, I didn't have a lot of shade. And this was about 15 years ago. We had just built a house and all of our landscaping was little. All the trees were little, all the plants were little. And now 15 years later, it's grown up quite a bit and we have a ton of shady spots that would absolutely love to have some lungwort planted there. But one of the best things to do is to gather your lungwort when it's either in the early spring or in the late spring. So when the leaves are young and when they're fresh and when they haven't really kind of gone to where they're mature and ready to go to sleep for the winter. So this is a perennial plant and this will come back every year once you get it established. Now, the cool thing is these little flowers in the early spring. So it's an early bloomer, which is nice because it adds a beautiful pop of color early in the spring. So the flowers, they're magical. So they go from pink to purple to blue. So the leaves or the flowers will turn light pink, purple, and blue. Now the flowers are used medicinally as well, but where the majority of the power is, from my research, is in the leaves. And they've got these unique white spots all over them. So you can harvest the young leaves, you can brew them fresh into a tea, which is one of my favorite ways to do it, or you can dry them and brew them into tea that way. You can cut them up and saute them, add them to your salads like I was talking about. They add this power punch of amazing health for you. So a quick little thing besides respiratory, and then skin. So we talk about skin. It's digestive aid and it's also good for your kidneys. There's some mild diuretic properties, which helps your body move the fluids through your body and helps with your kidneys, right? And it also has a bunch of antioxidant properties. I would love to know what you think and what you know about the amazing lungwort. This is something that I think is a really easy, beautiful thing to put into your flower garden if you have the right conditions as far as shady. Like I love to put hostas where it's shady and they grow and they thrive. And lungwort is going to be something that I add into my yard because it's so unique. It makes a beautiful ground cover. And then I can go in and harvest the leaves when they're at the perfect time. So I'd love to know what you think about lungwort. Has this piqued your interest in looking into plants that have been used medicinally for centuries, but then ignored by the modern world? And while I do believe this plant needs more scientific research, what I love is being a human being, being intuitively tuned in to the magic and all of the available plants that are available to us. If we just simply pay attention to them and start connecting again with all the gifts that Mother Nature has given us. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you learn to love lungwort as much as I do, and we'll see you in the next one.